Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review the original The Godfather. So, it is kind of funny because I would have probably have watched a number of movies or other shows or something like that that would probably have referenced The Godfather, but I have never actually have seen The Godfather until now. And that is kind of interesting. How I could watch a movie like You Got Mail where Tom Hanks is going, go to the mattresses, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I never knew what any of that meant. I was like, well, go to the mattresses? Never heard of The Godfather, never seen it until now. I think there probably, I'll be honest though, there had been one possibly random scene of The Godfather that I had seen before watching this for the first time. And I think it's the scene where Michael is to go and take Don and kind of shift his bed in the hospital. Like that's the only thing that I think I've randomly seen somewhere, but didn't know what the context of that was. I was like, oh hey, Al Pacino's in some weird movie that I don't know what it is. And I guess that just so happened to be The Godfather, and I didn't even know because I was just flipping through TV, just going like, "Hey, what's this Al Pacino movie?" But I never thought to just kind of go further into it and figure out what it was. So here's one thing I want to say about this film. I can see there might be a certain kind of people out there that like a certain kind of content. A lot of people could possibly like mafia themed kind of things. Like when you do kind of look at a number of like especially video games, you probably don't get a number of video games out there because of The Godfather. Plus there's also some things here that you probably don't get without The Godfather. Like, I don't know how many times there have been guns coming out of toilets for I don't know how many years, possibly because of The Godfather. How you can probably get, like, video games like Saints Row the Third or possibly any other iteration of that series without The Godfather, because it feels like there's some similarities into that, but then they go into this weird, wacky, wild kind of game series that is to be a barrage of randomness and whatever. You also probably don't have like Grand Theft Auto at some points in time because they do, I think, pull to, of course, having a Godfather-like feel at some points. Now I'll have playing like Grand Theft Auto like 5 or something like that, and then like watching this movie. But like I'm sure there's a ton of people that could come up with a billion references of stuff that had come from any number of things. Like I think there was this one goofy parody mafia film that I don't remember what the actual name of it was, but I remember there was this one scene where within that movie where I think someone was at a funeral and one guy was getting like pelted with bullets. Just pa 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 pa, and it was like good grief. Um, but yeah, like I know there's like a parody mafia film out there that was kind of one of those uh like epic movies or like disaster films, but it was like it had its own mafia theme. I don't know, I don't remember what it was actually called. Like I think it was right around the time that they were doing like the airplanes or the hot shots and stuff like that, and they ended up doing that goofy film. But anyways, so but with that said, I can enjoy this film. I can like this film. Uh, there are certain points in time where this movie isn't fully done in English because, of course, not because it would have to have some kind of parts where, of course, our characters are to speak Italian because why wouldn't they? So Where could you go out of your way to watch this film? Because immediately people would have that question. Right now, currently in the second this recording, like if you are going and you have a Showtime subscription because you're probably watching Dexter, the New Blood, and you're watching that already, or you're possibly watching Yellow Jacket, that's also on Showtime. You could also go and watch The Godfather on Showtime. If you don't want to go out of your way to fill out I think there is like a monthly free trial of Showtime, but it's been a while since I've had a Showtime subscription, and I tend to avoid going into subscriptional things, so I just have certain apps that just kind of eventually let me be able to watch anything that I want to, anyways. So, what app would I suggest for you to use? Well, you can go onto a Google search and search for an app called Letter C Movies, and you can watch this movie for absolutely free if you download an app called C Movies. And you should pretty much be able to watch almost anything through that. You could also go on to Google search an app called Fox HD Movies, and you should be able to see a logo that'll say Fox HD Movies. The title will say Play 1080p HD Movies or whatever goofy thing. And so that you could probably watch The Godfather without the actual Italian subtitled things where it kind of tells you what's going on in the subtitled version. Like, really, there's just two parts of that. It's not like a huge chunk of the movie or important parts, or to really just for you to, like, oh man, I'm completely missing what's going on in the film if I am not to hear what's going on in the Italian parts. Because even I was just like, like there's one scene where they're talking about beautiful women. Okay, like man, I feel like I'm missing out. It's a good thing that I found an app that had Italian subtitles for me to read about a beautiful woman. No offense to this movie, like, or no offense to like Italian people. Like I'm not trying to like besmirch anybody because I don't know Italian, and I'm apologizing because I don't know Italian because I'm an ignorant person. But like the Italian parts in this film didn't feel like vitally like I needed to know what they were. So to each their own, by choice of whatever you want to go into and watch. Plus, if you've seen this movie numerous times already, if you have a DVD or Blu-ray disc of it, then do that. So you could also go into. You could probably also go through a Google Play search of just saying the words "movie app," and you could probably find a bajillion, a bajillion, which isn't even a word. You can find a ton of movies that probably would possibly have The Godfather, because that seems like the one movie that any movie app should probably have, because you would think it'd be a no-brainer, right? Like The Godfather and Scarface and whatever the heck else, like, because like a lot of people who would probably go into The Godfather probably also went and saw like The Sopranos, Scarface. They went on to probably watch any number of mafia related like things because they just have that kind of enjoyment. So with that said, let's go on to just go into spoilers about this one. It is kind of funny while watching this movie because I had just seen, like, within hours, well, with almost a day's time now, I had seen the very first original Rocky. And I was like, wow, this is kind of weird. Like, I'm seeing, like, two people that are in this movie that were also in the Rocky movie. This is weird. It wasn't like I planned that, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna figure out where these actors, where else they got work, it was just a bizarre coincidence, but like I always say bizarre coincidence, but I always have that weird kind of thing where I can just connect things weirdly to anything. So let's stop wasting time and let's just get into that double five, because it's otherwise this thing again called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you get to spoil this movie. Man, and I really go in the cryptic sense of this, and didn't really say much about it. So wait a minute. Let's tee it up. I'll take a couple minutes to tee up this movie if no one has ever watched The Godfather, because it's surprising that there's probably a huge mass of people that have never seen this film because they never bothered to. So I can understand that, because I never have, because I was just like, I don't know what I'm missing. But like some people might watch the movie like The Irishman or Goodfellas or whichever, and so like I think I've seen a good portion of Goodfellas, but I've never seen like the whole Goodfellas movie. I've seen bits and pieces of Casino, the Robert uh, Robert De Niro film and Sharon Stone film. I'm going through some deep pulls, me trying to remember some of this stuff. Like I messed up on God was on The Harder They Fall. I messed up uh, instead of saying high noon, or instead of saying The Quick and the Dead, I said High Noon. Like I didn't even remember, I guess, what the Gene Hackman Western movie even was. I thought it was called High Noon for whatever reason, but evidently it was called The Quick and the Dead. So let's go into it. So the team up version of this movie is we are to have Don Vito Corleone, who is to seemingly be in the beginning of this movie. We have very special events that in one film, one fell swoop, like tie with this movie. Like we begin the movie with a wedding and we end the movie with a baptism. And so between those moments, we have Don, who of course is to have a bunch of people all coming in and asking him for certain things that they desperately need, because of course the Don Vito will just be like, yeah, sure, I could do that. I can do whatever you need. I'll do that as long as you kiss my fingers. And like, why don't you bring me over for pie or tea or something? Come on. Like, I'm a very lonely guy. Come on. Like, because that's basically what he says. He's like, hey, you don't bring me over for tea? Like, what the heck? So, I could have been a contender. Oh, that's another Marlon Brando movie. So, we have Don, who is to figure out how to help all of these people, because he's just bombarded with all these people. And so all of a sudden, we have Don, who is to go into another kind of business, because it seems that narcotics is booming. And so he's to go to the guy who is to be the narcotics guy. And so all of a sudden this leads to a seemingly war going on, where people slowly but surely are to be killed, and that starts to lead to a transition of many different things going on in this film, even with the Corleone family having to forcibly leave where they are to have lived, to just kind of escape to go to Nevada. We have also a change of leadership at points in this movie, because we forcibly have to. And a lot of this is to tie into the Corleone family, as well as the people that they are to meet along the way in this film. So, with that said, I don't feel like I teed up this movie all that well. That was a huge, like, yeah, let's super vague this movie, but like it's like 2 hours and change, and like I don't want to take 2 hours and change to talk about this whole film, because there's a lot of times where we kind of have to just meet up with these people and go through all these transitional things in this film. There's a lot of thing going on in one film. So that's all that I'd have to say. Go out of your way to enjoy this slow pace of a film. And it's like, I would have to say that this is a. There's interesting things about it. I would have to say that this is a solid. Well, it would probably have to be a solid, like, it would probably have to be, like, a good film, but I say good with a question mark. There's, like, an asterisk to that good, where it's just, like, it's good, but it's slow, because it has to be. It's interesting. Like, I don't want to say it's a bad film, because, like, I would have to be really interested in a kind of mafia like thing. And I've gone into watching stuff like Sopranos. I've gone into watching a number of things that I've already mentioned here, like The Irishman and so on and so forth. And so, like, I can understand people having wildly different opinions about The Godfather. Some people may hate The Godfather for whatever reason, and I can understand that too. So with that said, I'm just going to go into spoilers about this one, because it's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time you get to spoil this movie. So, very beginning of the film, we are, like I said, and I'm trying to already try to see, yeah. Hopefully, there's going to be some goofy names that I'm going to probably ill pronounce somewhere. I'm going to try to get all the names correct in this film, but we also have a lot of times where there's just a lot of people in this movie. There's just a ton of freaking people. There's like 5 families of people. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in here that is to be like transitional kinds of things and so on and so forth. So I'm going to try to otherwise do my best. So let's go on to it. Spoiler time if I haven't said so already. So let's go into it. So, very beginning of this film, we open this film in a wedding where we have Don, who is to, of course, yeah, I'm gonna kiss my fingers. I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. Yeah. So, Don with his little cat that he's kind of petting. I wonder if that was actually was that a choice that they wanted to do, was to like have him like have this cat on him because like mounds of fur like on a wedding dress or on a wedding dress on a wedding tux, like was that really a smart decision there? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing there. So everybody is to line up to get the whole family picture. And so Donna's like, well, where's Michael? And so they're like, well, Michael isn't here yet. And he's like, well, we can't take a family picture without Michael here, so let's wait. So Michael is to arrive, Al Pacino, in his military gear, or military suit, so to speak, that his dress suit, his dress military outfit, because it's to basically like on the side of it, it's to be all the like the awards that he had achieved and stuff like that while being in the military. And because like he's not wearing like his camouflage and a helmet and going up like, hey family, I'm back. No. So Michael is to make it back here, and he is, of course, to go to this wedding with a girl named Kay Adams, who unfortunately is to like have some bits and pieces of this movie because Michael is going to have to leave for a year, and then when he comes back, he kind of uh, establishes himself with Kay, just like, hey, like I still love you, so you're gonna love me. So guess what? We're just gonna get married now. Like when he comes back. But let's get our chickens before they hatch, kind of thing. So Don is going on with the whole wedding, and so Don is to be in his little private office with Tom, who is to supposedly be their consigliere, who is to be a lawyer, and like so much about this, like right out of the gate. Like I've been watching a lot of Yellowstone lately, and I'm just like, well, if Don is technically like Kevin Costner's character, and Tom is to be like the Jamie character, who's the Beth character? Is that Connie? I guess that would have to be because that's the only person that I can think of. And then so like I would have to think of who the heck is everyone else. Probably Casey, probably has to be Michael, I guess. But anyways, pushing on. So Don is to have everybody come to him and offer and ask for a favor. One guy is to come in and is to say that there had been guys that had took advantage of his daughter and had disfigured or deformed his daughter, and this guy is coming in to ask the Don for revenge. And so the Don's like, well, hey, you never went and like had me over with tea and stuff like that, and I haven't seen you in I don't know how long, but now you come in here and ask me for this. Like, and so, but the guy decides to go, and so Don is just like, okay, like I will accept and do this for you, but one day in return, like I will come to you, and maybe it'll never happen, but one day I will come for you and ask you something, ask you for a favor. So now we have this whole wedding being done, and like everybody's dancing around doing some Italian music, so on and so forth, which actually, like, beyond the whole like Godfather theme, which I'm like, you know what, like I like the kind of the Godfather theme, and then they end up kind of like putting as much like certain kind of music as they can possibly fit in here. That is to just be kind of the Italian music of things. So it's kind of interesting to see this kind of certain culture that we see in this movie that I can really enjoy. Like we just have a certain kind of flavor of things that like I can just really just like that's what makes these movies kind of so unique is you get a real feel of a culture instead of just like this thing just feeling like any other kind of movie. No, they kind of purposely make this movie feel one of a kind because they add a culture in to it also. They authenticate it with culture. So that's so interesting about this film. So we have a guy named, I think his name is Johnny Fontaine, who is to seemingly be this musician, this artist of sorts, and he is to make his way to this wedding. And we have the girls all screaming. They're like, oh my God, it's Johnny Fontaine. And so we have the Don who's just kind of watching on, like, hey, like he's here, like great for him. So we have these women swooning over him. We even have the bride, who of course is to be Connie, who is to be swooning over, of course, Johnny Fontaine. And so this guy is to at first not to want to put on some performance, but like everyone is just keep asking like, hey man, can you just sing something please. And so he's just like, you know what? Okay, sure. I'll do it for you guys. So he ends up singing one song, and so Johnny then kind of squeaks out and then goes off to go and talk to Don, and is to mention, like, well, hey, like, uh, I am to desperately be wanting this one movie gig because I feel it's just like me. It's just like my life. And I think I won't have to work all that hard for this movie role. But the only problem is the guy that is to be the decision maker for this movie is to definitely not want me to be in this role. And so we have Johnny who's blubbering and crying, and so Carleone is just like, man up. Like, come on. Like, and so Don is just like, you know what, like, I'll take care of it, like, just get out of here, like, you and your boo-hoos and your cries and your whatevers. So this guy walks out, and so now Tom has to go off and immediately go and get a plane ride to California. So Tom is now having to go to see a man about a horse, so to speak. But like, we'll cover that in a second, because there's also this moment where we have this guy named Luca Brasi who is to go to Don. And the funny thing is, before Tom is to leave to California, he has to see Michael. He's like, oh, Michael, hey, man, like, it's great. Like, it's great to see you again. And so, so of course, like, Tom is to basically be like a brother to Michael for how much that Tom has basically been in the family. Like, he's basically family. And so, and I guess Connie, who is to be in this whole wedding thing, Michael is actually, that's his sister. Connie is Michael's sister. So I'm like, okay, this is like, okay, so they kind of easily set all this up. And then I guess Sonny is to be Michael's oldest brother or older brother, because we have Fredo, who I think is Michael's oldest brother. So, man, there's a lot of family members in here. So, but yeah, so Brazio goes and has this like whole speech prepared to Don, to the Don, and so Brazio is just kind of like saying this speech over and over, where he's like, I'm so happy that I am here. Like, hey man, like, if you need to memorize it, it's okay. Like, freaking, like, but yeah, so like, he's like, I hope that their child will be a masculine one. And I'm like, all right, like, so Brazi is to, how am I saying this? Yeah, Brazi. Brazi is to go off to the Dawn and is to say this speech that he has prepared for the Dawn, and then he says, "Is like, well, I am, like, I will leave you because I'm sure you are busy," and so he walks off. He's like a very robotic like character, but hey, man, like, Don goes and tells Brazi, like, hey, like, go and kill these guys, and so this guy puts on this like bulletproof vest and is to go out there to, sadly enough, like, he's to go out there to try and kill these guys, but they end up killing him instead. They end up like stabbing him in the hand, and then they end up like choking him out. So he is to go out to try and kill these guys, but they do the exact reverse on him. So I'm like, oh, that's sad. But I guess they kind of figured that this guy was coming to kill them. So let's cover the Tom going out to California and stuff like that. So Tom goes out to California to talk to a guy named Jack Waltz. So this guy is to, of course, be this big, lavish, I think, producer of movies and so on and so forth. So I guess he is to have his own picture company, whichever. Like, I don't know how big this guy really is. I don't know the whole scope of him and whatever. But so Tom is to talk to this guy, and it's like, you know what? Like, I need Fontaine. I need him to be in this movie. And so Jack is just like, well, that's great and all, but that's a no. And so Tom is like, are you sure? Like, because I work with a guy named Don Corleone, and he doesn't take no really for an answer. And so, but Tom goes and is to speak to Jack within his own home. And so Jack is to go on and say that he is to have this prize horse. That, because, like, I realize what's coming. Uh, Jack is to talk about this prized horse that he isn't racing anymore, but it's his, like, he's just babying it and whatever. And so Jack is to talk to Tom and just be like, you know what? This guy is never going to be in my picture because this guy had went on and stole my prize actress from me. This girl that like had so much promise, and this guy all of a sudden came in with his good looks and his whatever and stole her away from me. And now I am just so bitter about that this guy will never get a role in my movie ever again. So Tom is just like, well, okay, it seems like there is no reasoning with you, so I guess I'm just going to have to go and leave here, realizing that I'm going to leave here with a no, and I'm going to have to tell Don Corleone that you have said no to him. So Jack is to go and fall asleep and just like, man, this bed is just like the best bed that I've ever slept in for I don't know how long. Like, I don't know why. Like I would think that I would probably have a Charlie horse sleeping in this bed, because all of a sudden Jack is to wake up the next day with blood in his bed, and so all of a sudden Jack has to go and really just he's having to really just shift those bed sheets, because all of a sudden he has to see his horse's head in his bed, and he's like, ah, my horse, ah. So yeah, like the guy says no, well, you're gonna get a horse head in your bed. So now after that moment we transition uh for Don Vito to want to go and move into the narcotics business, because it seems like it's working really well for a guy named Zalazo. Zalazo, if I'm saying that wrong, you're going to see him a lot in this film. So, well, a lot up to a certain point, let's just say. So, Salazzo is to be the head of narcotics, and it seems that Vito is to realize how profitable that can be, because I guess the Don had only been really going and working with casinos and stuff like that and buying off politicians and so on and so forth. And so it seems like Salazzo is to need some kind of backing, and is to need like also some kind of like arrangement that the Don can think that he can offer this guy. So, and Sonny is to think that it's a really good idea, that there's a lot of money there, and so also does Tom. So Don Vito goes to Salazzo, and they are to arrange this whole meeting where Salazzo is to say, it's like, well, I need about $1 million. And Vito, all of the like political people and all the big head honcho people that you know that you've paid off, I need them too. And so it seems like Salazzo is to basically ask like Don Vito for pretty much everything. And so Sonny is just kind of to interject. Vito is like, hold on a minute, like, you don't talk like I do, because I'm the Don here. So Vito is to go on and just be like, you know what, like, that sounds great and all, but we're just gonna decline. We're just gonna, like, that you're asking for way too much here. Like, you're asking for me to, like, have, like, my, like, politicians into a drug trade, and those two don't mix. Like, no. I'm not gonna have everyone pushing your drugs. Like, no, it's not gonna work. Like, no. I'm not gonna incorporate every single thing of my business with your drugs. No. So Don Vito goes off, and so what is to happen after that is Salazzo is just to be like, well, you know what, like, let's just go after these people. Like, technically it's like a battle of real estate, and like Salazzo is just like, you know what, like, it's time to just kind of wipe some people off the face of the planet. So we have Salazzo, who decides to go after Don Vito and shoots him in the middle of the street. Like, him and his men shooting Vito in the middle of the street. And Vito is to be with Fredo, who is to be Michael's oldest brother. And by the time that Vito is to get his gun out, it's all too late. And so Don Vito had been shot 5 times. Not like 50 Cent, where he's been shot, 9 times, supposedly? But so Don Vito had to forcibly go to the hospital. And so when Don was to go into the hospital, Michael was to go and see his father, realizing that there's no security detail, no nothing for Vito. So it's like, well, this is suspicious. Like, is someone going to try and kill my father here? So Michael is to go and take his father and put him in a different room. But weirdly enough, there isn't anybody who is to go on and try to kill Corleone, I guess, because Michael is to put up a front that, hey, don't come in here or you're going to end up dead. So, because there was to be people driving by, but they just drove off. So Michael all of a sudden is to have all these police officers arrive in front of this hospital, because we have the nurse that it's to tell Michael, it's like, well, hey, visiting hours are over. So these police appear, and it seems that Salazzo and this like officer, this sheriff of sorts, is to be under Salazzo's payroll. So Michael is to go and get punched by this police officer, and so now Michael wants to nip this all in the butt, to basically just be like, you know what, I am not going to be put up with getting punched in the face by some police officer, and like, I am to not be afraid of Salazzo. So what they plan to do is to have Michael go and assassinate both Salazzo and this police officer all in one fell swoop at this restaurant, and then have him leave for a year and go to Italy, I'm assuming. But yeah, so Michael is to meet Salazzo at this certain meeting place, and so they end up patting him down, trying to see if he has any weapons on him, and they continue to pat him down through this part here to see if he has any guns on him. You would have thought every time this guy would have, like, got up to go anywhere, you would have thought they would have continued to pat this guy down for whatever goofy reason, but they didn't. So so the so the guys decide on Michael's side of things. They decide to figure out how to plant this gun, and they plant it in this bathroom. And before this whole meeting is to go on to being a thing, what if they would have went to some other place than where it was planned to actually go? But I get like because we have where Salazzo and his people were like going and driving to New Jersey. And so Michael's like, we're going to New Jersey, and Salazzo's like, maybe. And then they quickly like turn around, I guess, to lose any kind of people following them to head to where they're heading to. So we we have Michael who goes and gets this gun that was planted in this bathroom. And so what ends up happening is that Salazzo is to talk to Michael and speak in Italian, and is to just mention like, hey man, like let's kind of like uh let's put this behind us. Let's get to a treaty, or let's get to something where we can kind of like get past this. And so Michael goes and whips out his gun, shoots both these guys. I think shoots one bullet in the air, but I'm not sure. And then Michael drops the gun, runs off, and is to run off to Italy for a year. So Michael in that time is to go to Italy, and is to, of course, uh, meet up with some certain guys that they are to protect him. And while that is to happen, Michael is to meet a girl named uh, Apolliona. 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 I'm probably ill pronouncing that. So we have this girl that is to fall in love with Michael, because Michael is to talk to her father. And like they end up talking like, because the guys, Michael and these guys, are talking about all these beautiful women, and they end up describing some woman that just so happens to be this one man's daughter. And he's like, oh, like how could you? And so all of a sudden Michael is to like force this guy to come back out there, and is to have one guy translate to say like, I'm sorry that I have offended you and like talked about your daughter, but you know what, I would love to meet your daughter, and with your permission, of course, and out of all respect, and so on and so forth. He's just being very gentlemanly about this. So it seems that Michael is to win over this guy, because Michael is to say, it's like, well, I'm Michael Corleone. In America, like, that name will hold some heavy value, and you can go and, like, they didn't have Google search, like, during this time, I'm sure. But, like, he could go and find out how much value this name actually has. So Michael is to go and mingle with Paulina and Paulina. And so they go on, and these two end up getting, like, in this whole year of time, they end up getting married. They end up probably having a million kids, it seems. Like, it seems like they have a whole life in a year of change of whatever time. Because it seems like Michael is never going back to America. And so all of a sudden we start having it to where slowly but surely the Corleone family is starting to get picked off. And so now we have it to where Sonny is to have it where Sonny is to notice that his sister is to get bruises, mentioning that Connie is getting uh, beaten up by her husband, and so now Sonny's like, I'm not gonna like see that. Like, I'm not gonna see my daughter. I'm not gonna see my sister come to me with bruises. And so Sonny goes and takes, I think, Carlo, and he takes him, and in the middle of the street just beats the crap out of him. Just takes like a garbage lid and smacks him on the head, and all kinds of brutal kind of stuff, which is kind of really cool. To just see this guy just pelting this guy in the street, just beating the crap out of him in the street to make an example of him, because that's, I guess, in these families what normally you would have to do. So, but we just have it to where Connie and this guy is to just get into these arguments anyways, because Carlo is to receive a call that Connie is to pick up from some woman saying like, "Hey, I'm going to be late tonight," or something like that. And so Connie's like, "What the is this?" So Connie all of a sudden is to just start bashing through this whole house, like breaking all these things. And I'm like, good God. And so, like, we just have, like, Carlo and, like, Connie, like, brutally just, like, Carlo is, like, beating Connie with this belt. And I'm just like, good God, this is so brutal. And so I'm just imagining that Carlo is going to soon get killed, or like Connie and Carlo are gonna, like, I doubt they're gonna get divorced, because we just have like these people that probably believe that marriage has to be a thing that they have to keep going along with no matter what. So because Carlo was to get beaten publicly by Sonny, Carlo is to turn around and say, "Hey guys, you go after Sonny and murder him." And so we have the we have the uh, uh, Barzini men who end up going and uh, killing, of course, Sonny while he's at this bridge, just kind of waiting. And all of a sudden, like, the people in the car in front of him and people off to the side are all having all these Tommy guns, and they're blasting through this car. And when Sonny ends up getting out, he gets like pelted with these bullets, and we just kind of see him just kind of like pop, 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 and then he falls over and he dies. There is to also be, I guess, one scene where I guess there's to be this guy named uh, I'm trying to get the things correct here. We have a guy named Gatto who I guess was to be, I guess, Corleone's driver on some day. And supposedly Gatto was to coincidentally on a specific day call off that he was to be sick. And then the Don was to be shot on that specific day. And so they go off and they take Gatto and have one guy who is to, of course, be Cremenza go off and kill this guy, and they end up leaving the gun and taking the cannoli, because they immediately think that this is the guy who was to kill or have Corleone killed, because he was coincidentally gone on the day that Corleone was being shot 5 times. So, and coincidentally, when he comes back, he like is to kind of fake that he's sick. And Sonny's like, "Hey man, like, do you need some noodle soup or something, or some, like, do you need some kind of something? And so the guy's like, no, I think I'm fine. And like, they're like, hey man, just kind of drink some like brandy. Maybe you can like sweat this off or something. I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it. It's like, I don't know. Like, was this guy faking it? Like, I don't know. Was he faking being ill? So, so what also happens is Michael is to know that he has to scramble and get out of where he is. He's still in Italy, and they're telling him like, "Hey man, like I think you need to leave because I think people are figuring out where you are. So you need to get out of here." So we find out that they're kind of scrambling, and so Michael is getting his woman and like getting the car ready, and all of a sudden we end up finding out that Michael's car is to explode without him in it, and his woman who he had married with had died. Like, oh well, that sucks. So, but I guess it's lucky that Michael, sadly enough, just decided to not go into a car that explodes. So Michael is just be like, you know what? Like, I need to head back. Like, I need to go back home. Like, I can't. Like, I'm either gonna die uh, in Italy or I'm gonna die at home. So I might as well just be home with my family. So Michael is to head back, and so Michael is to go on and become the head of this family. He's going to become the new, like, he's going to become the new Godfather, and Vito is going to just start slowly but surely retiring until he dies. He dies going into some orange field, and so he ends up passing away, and they end up having his funeral. But I'm kind of like going a little bit quick to the draw here. So we have Michael who makes it back, and of course is to tell Kay Adams, it's like, well, hey, like I've been back for a year, but like I've been so busy with my father's kind of work that like I just haven't seen you until now. So Michael is catching up with Kay, saying that like I love you and like we should get back together, and so like yeah, you're gonna come with me and you're gonna be my wife. So, and it seems like Kay will probably never really know what Michael actually does, but who knows? Maybe there's other sequels that will tell us what Michael actually does, and Kay will realize that. I don't know. It eventually will probably end up being that way. So now that Salazzo is to be like taken out, like we still have Michael and the whole entire family that needs to move off to Nevada because like basically they're being run out of their town. And so Michael is to leave certain guys in charge. I think he ends up leaving Clemenda, and he ends up leaving Tessio, kind of to like leave them to just kind of make some kind of business. And so Michael goes off to, of course, Nevada, where he is to try and quickly buy off some casino from a guy named Mo Green. So Michael is to be met by Johnny Fontaine, and they're playing all this music. They have Fontaine there. He's like, "Hey man, like anything for Vito." So Michael is like, "You know what? I'm tired. Like I don't want all this flashy business here. Just freaking leave." And so Fredo is to be there, and Fredo is to not be on the side of Michael. He's to be on the side of Mo, because when Mo comes in there, Michael is to basically tell like Mo, "Hey man, we're buying you out," and Mo's like, "You don't buy me out. I buy you out. Like that's not how it works." And so Michael is like, I'm sorry, Mo, but you're losing business doing this casino, so we want to buy this from you because like we know that we can probably do it better. And Mo's like, like sure, whatever, because Mo's thinking it's like, dude, I'm not skimming from the top. I'm not trying to do any kind of like weird, goofy things here. I'm not burning any books or whatever. So Mo does not want to give up his casino. And so Michael is just like, well, okay, if like you're not going to like agree to this, like we're like it's gonna happen whether you want to or not. So they go to Nevada, and so uh, Michael is to transition things, and is to say that Tom is not no longer going to be their consigliere. He's just going to be some lawyer that they use at some point in time, and that supposing Michael is to have his father as his consigliere because Vito is basically semi-retired, but he'll always take advice from his father. So Tom is like, I'm out. Like, I've been like forever like a part of your family, and I'm now out. And like, they're like, hey man, like, take it as no reflection of like that you're doing a bad job. Just take it as like we're going in a different direction. And so Tom is like, okay, all right, well, see you guys later. There's nothing I can do. So So of course we transition to have Vito die. They have the funeral, and so now we just have it where Michael is just kind of conspiring to see like out of the five families that Vito was to go on and have this meeting with them and to try to see like especially after Sonny was to die, like Vito was to try to bring the five families together to stop this war. And so Vito was to talk to these people and like try to get some alliances where like Vito was to say it's like, well, hey, certain people like are to just kind of match like what had happened to him because there had also been another guy there that had his son die, and so his son had been killed. So like they do this whole meeting and the whole meeting just goes nowhere. So they turn around, and so while Vito is having his funeral, Tessio is to go to Michael and say that they're to want to reach a meeting with him. And so Michael's like, okay, like, all right. So Michael is to go and talk, I think, to Tom and say what I think, or he thinks what they're going to plan. And so Michael is to come up with another plan that he's going to wait till Connie's baptism because supposedly Michael is to be the godfather of Connie's kid. So, which is kind of a weird turnaround when we go into the further part of this movie. So, Michael is to go to this baptism, and during this baptism, we end up having a certain portion of people who end up getting killed. We end up having Barzini, who ends up getting killed. We have Mo Green that ends up getting killed. We have Tatagila, Tadia Gila. I know they said this especially during the funeral, but I'm like, blur, whatever his weird name is, because I can't pronounce it because heaven forbid. Strassi and Sino or Kuno, Cuneo, and they were all like they're all like murdered and killed or whatever. We have Mo Green, who I think is getting some like massage being done, and he gets shot in the face. There's one guy who ends up getting trapped in uh, this one door, this one like one of those doors that you have to like push and you can get out of the door. Well, like this guy is getting trapped in that like little push door thing where it goes in that circle thing where you can kind of go round and round and then just get out of the door by kind of like being the little gap of space. He ends up getting trapped and then he ends up getting he ends up getting shot through the glass, which I thought was like, you know what, that's actually a good way to like that's an interesting way to kill somebody because they're trapped, and so now like they're going to forcibly die because they have nowhere else to go. So like there's some interesting deaths that happen during this scene, like during the whole like right around the Baptist scene. So next after that, after they murder and kill everybody, next after that, there of course is to be uh, the scene where now Michael is to like, well, hey, not all these deaths, not all of them are good enough. Because then Michael is to pull aside Carlo, who is to be Connie's husband, and say, well, here's the thing. I think you were the one who had Sonny get killed, so guess what? You're going to die too. Not by our hands, but you're going to die anyways. So they end up going and taking this guy, and certain people end up taking him into this car and then choking him into this car. And so Carlo is to break the windshield of this car while choking, and so they kill him off that way. And so Connie ends up just riddled with guilt, is to go to her brother Michael and be like, you killed my husband. I'm like, dude, like he was beating the out of you, but like that's the weird, bizarre-ish loyalty of certain people. When I guess it comes down to, even though this guy was beating the out of her, it's still just like, well, that was still my husband. I'm like, okay, that's so weird, but okay, like I guess it prevents you from breaking all your fine china and getting hit with some belt or whatever, but still, like, I guess you have the loyalty of certain people. You just have it to where like no matter what, like it's still the person that they married. It's like maybe they were thinking that at some point they could turn this guy around and he could be a good father or whatever, and I guess there's that, but still it's just so weird. And so that's where that's where kind of the movie is to just kind of end with that whole like that end of a thing. And so where Michael is to go off and is to have certain people, of course, kissing his hand and them asking him for certain help with certain situations. And so Michael is to go off to do business, so his wife is to go off into some other room where they're to talk about certain kind of businesses. And so like that's the real end of this movie, is you just see Michael's wife looking back and just like, hey, like what are they doing in there? So that's the way this thing is to rattle off. My God, like it only took an hour to do this. It only took an hour to talk about most of this movie. I know there's probably something that I probably like. Not everything is to be completely 100% a thing that I've mentioned here. Plus, also, there's certain things that I don't want to go into absolute detail because I like to, like, I want to try to get something as shortly down and whatever as possible. If I ever go into Godfather 2, which I don't know about that. It'll depend on if, like, people want to hear reviews of this. If I ever go into Godfather 2, if I miss something in Godfather 1, heaven forbid, maybe I'll go into Godfather 2 and rebuttal and just like, oh yeah, I forgot about this part. Like, because there's some stuff where I probably don't know the ins and outs of things. I don't know the Godfather connection of this world of everything. So if there's anything that I probably was like too vague about or whatever, because I know there's some people that hold this movie in severely high regard, which I can understand that because there's a lot of people that like certain films. They can like any kind of thing. And so, with that said, maybe someone has seen Godfather hundreds upon hundreds of times, and they know the ins and outs of it. They understand and know the world of things. And like, I don't want to sound like that, like a condescending person, where it's just like, oh, like, because I treat that like I treat Ghostbusters, where I feel like I know, like, I can know the ins and outs of that world weirdly because I've seen that movie like 1,000 some odd times. But there's like I probably would know like I could probably like go through an entire Ghostbusters movie, the original one, and like quote the words word by word at some chunks of the movie, but it's still been a while since I've seen it, so like I could say like, oh, I've seen a movie thousands of times, but like it's been years since watching it, so I'm not an expert on Ghostbusters or whatever. I've just seen enough of it to understand the overall concepts and whatever. But anyways, because this is going off a wild and weird, different other thing. So with that said, I tried my best to talk about this in the best way that I could. Um, I could say I can enjoy this film, but I'll probably never watch it again. Plus, these movies are probably far too long for me to like. This is a long stretch of a film. Like I can watch movies like The Irishman and never want to watch that again, and it's always fine. It's always fine to just have certain movies that is just a one-off experience that I'm never gonna have again. Um, and so, really, there's a ton of movies that are going to be that way. Like much more like I could probably say this. I could say that this is going to be a one-off experience, but you know what? This is probably a better quality movie than a lot of more current stuff that has come out. Let's say that. So, like, probably Godfather might be better than several new things that have come out, just because several new things that have come out doesn't even bother to do a story. Like, they basically just have, like, legitimately the whole movie is to be tied around a whole entire concept, and even that is just kind of a flimsy concept. And so like they go into an hour and change movie where it's just writing on a whole concept of a thing and not a well thought out movie. The Godfather is a well thought out film where there's a lot of different things that are to be incorporated in here, and some things that I can enjoy separately from the movie as a whole. So, with that said, that's all I think I want to say about Godfather. I want to get the heck out of here because long movie attaching to a very long review. So, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.